All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel and as well as on BuffaloPlus.com. Dan Fetes joined alongside Mike Catalana. Mike, I think we've gotten a little bit of rest since the draft is over. But I guess I just want big picture. What did you think of it?
I tweeted something out in the middle of it that I said, it's not that I disliked the draft for the Bills. It was I didn't quite get it. Now, fast forward to the end, after all 7 rounds, and Brandon Beane speaks, and I thought to myself, all right, I guess I get it a little bit more. I get the idea of what he's doing. You know, people would say to me, well, he drafted, you can't have enough offensive and defensive linemen. I agree, but,
But there's a fine line.
There is, and, they're drafting almost like a team that's all set, and maybe they believe that's the case. And to his point, Beane came out and said, hey, these guys can contribute, and they can. And I had fans say to me, look, A.J. Epinesa didn't do much last year. Well, that's not a good thing. I mean, you drafted him in the second round. Maybe there's more out of him this year and thinking that way. But, I will say this. I do trust Beane because he's smart and he's made good decisions. But he did kind of lose me a little bit on this one.
Well, Mike, what were we talking about, I think, on Friday night? That every draft pick is a good draft pick until it's not. Like all of these picks make sense, and you can go, oh, yeah, I can see that until it doesn't pan out. And like I said, I think the jury is still out on that Oliver's pick. And like we could be sitting here taking that Beane is taking several swings at defensive line. And I know that you want to rotate positions and all of those things. The one thing, Mike, that stood out to me is when you went with 2 offensive tackles, and not just 2 offensive tackles, Mike, 2 offensive tackles that are 6'8". And the reason that stood out to me is because at 6'8", it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility, Mike, to play guard. Like those guys are offensive tackles. Like we talk about, Ike Butker and guys that have been versatile. I even look at a guy like, in years past, Ryan Groy, guys that could kind of shuffle throughout the entire offensive line. When you're 6'8", it is very difficult to play guard. Like you are kind of pegged into being a tackle there. So, and also like you have Darrell Williams and you believe that Dion is your, the cornerstone of this offensive line. So again, I think it's okay to raise some questions and go like, what's going on? And of course, Beane phrases it as we trusted the board. Like the board told us what to do. Yeah,
that's fine. You're right about the 6'8" part. First of all, it's also tough to play tackle at 6'8".
Yeah.
Because it does in an odd way limit people physically sometimes. And he talks about bending over and just that type of movement for somebody that tall. I mean, there have been guys been very successful at, taller tackles, certainly. But yeah, drafting 2, it's almost like he went 2 for 1 here, as if to say, well, one of them will pan out.
Right.
And if you're doing that in the 6th or 7th round, I feel a little differently. Look, they're talented guys. They come in,
athletic
they learn.
Freaks.
Yeah. Right. And you say, okay, again, taking a shot. When you mentioned the D-line, the 2 guys, early picks, obviously, I think to myself, okay, 2 defensive ends. The year before, defensive end. The year before, the defensive tackle. And you've gone out and spent on Butler and Addison and Quentin Jefferson, right? And you drafted Harrison Phillips. All that's done, and the best defensive lineman is still Jerry Hughes.
Yeah.
So, I guess there's a good part and say, we've got the quarterback, we've got the wide receiver, we have a really good offense, we have a good defense that can be better. This is the one area, I don't think there's any doubt, there's the one area that he's going to keep grinding on is that defensive line because he hasn't gotten it right yet.
And I do want to switch a little bit from a pick that he didn't make, because I feel like this made a bunch of headlines, was not drafting a running back. And I think we all assumed there'd be running back. We all thought it would be, edge rusher, corner, running back. Were like 3 things that they needed to address. And they drafted an edge. They drafted 2 edge rushers, but only 1 corner, and it was a 6th-round pick. Obviously, a lot of headlines out of Beane's comment at the end saying, well, we weren't targeting a running back. And I had a lot of people in my mentions yesterday being like, see, you got duped. You bought into the smokescreen. And if you listen to the rest of the rest of Beane's comment, and I later tweeted it out today, he said, like, we liked guys. They were talented guys. He goes, but they went off the board before we were on the clock. Like, for everybody that says they didn't want ETN, and then they say, see, what, Mike, I just want to say, like, what was Beane supposed to say?
Right.
If he really wanted ETN and he comes out of this draft and we sit here and go, hey, he didn't draft running back. And did fans expect him to be like, we really wanted ETN because, Devin and Zach we just don't have any faith in them. Like, of course he's going to say we weren't targeting one.
Well, that's an interesting way you put it, because he did say we don't have a home run hitter. And if there was a guy like that up there, we would certainly look at him. And targeting to me would be, we're going to move up. They went into 2018 targeting a quarterback and a middle linebacker, and they went out and they moved up and they got those two guys in Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds. They didn't necessarily target a running back. But I wonder what the board would have said at 30, right? If Travis Etienne is there, would the board have said,
we'll never know?
You won't know. And so you bring in the two defensive ends. And he says, man, Mario Addison, he's an important guy for us now. And he might be. But, we talked about the salary cap too, and things can change depending on what else you have. The other thing he said was, to your other point about corners, he said, we have a lot of faith in Levi, which, they do. They like Levi. They keep bringing him back, and he keeps winning the job. Somewhat by default, but he wins the job. And he's a good football player. And they drafted Dane Jackson. I think they like him too. But liking him and thinking he's going to be that guy. So what did he say? After the draft, when you only brought one guy in, he's like, we like our corners. And I said, Brandon Beane has a way of really supporting his players right up until he doesn't want them anymore.
Yep.
And that's what a good GM should do. And that's what he's done. So, the whole bit about the running back, yes. Travis Etienne would have been a good shot to be their pick if he was there at 30, or say he was there at 28 or 29. They could have made a small move and gotten him. I think they might have done it.
What a lot of the smarter people, more connected people than us in the industry, they all said that the Bills were interested in ETN. My source said that the Bills were really into ETN. Like, I think there really was an interest. What I think people started to realize, and what you heard more throughout the draft coverage, is that because it was such a unique year with medicals and all these things, teams seemed very hesitant to give up future draft picks, meaning hopefully next year there's a combine, there's medicals, people can do that. So teams seemed very hesitant to give up even a third or a fourth next year. Like, this year was kind of that, not drafting in the dark, but kind of in some respects to some of the medicals. And I found it interesting where, again, going back to the point where Mikey says we weren't targeting a running back. Well, he also said we weren't targeting two edge rushers in the first 2 rounds, but that's what his board told him to do. I would love to know how he ranks that board. And like I said, and maybe one day he'll give us an inside angle or an inside perspective of does he rank them by position? Does he rank them by need? How does he draw that up? Because it really seemed like Beane was, we sat there at 30 and I thought they may be trading back because there were so many guys that fit there, whether it was a corner, whether it was, trading back to get 2 twos, I thought would be a fit. But Beane sat there and said, like, this is our guy because this is how the board falls. I thought that was an interesting dynamic.
Right. And maybe it did with Rousseau. When we'll find out what they thought really of Travis Etienne is in 3.5 years when he's released by Jacksonville and the Bills sign him and Brandon Beane says, man, I'm telling you, when that kid come out, he was at the top of our board. Maybe that's the only time we'll ever find out.
I tried to trade up for him then, but it just didn't work out. And I'll be there on Twitter.
Can tell us that then.
I'll be on Twitter like, I knew it. I was right.
What's funny though, Dan? I look at it and I say, I just feel like it is a draft that could really pay off in, say, 22 and 23. And that's great. And I think the part I had the problem with it was, people are like, well, you're picking 30th. Oh, don't give me that. You're picking 30th. That's in the first round. You're still picking 30th. Like, whoever you like up to that point is better than, how do I phrase this? When you're picking 30th, whoever's picked early in the second round was on the board when you picked 2, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So there are guys there that you could have taken, whether it's wide receiver, corner, whatever it is, right? That went there. But I know the Bills are talented and they're good. And everybody talks about them chasing the Chiefs, which is fine. I guess what got me a little bit is I sat there between the offseason and the draft and I thought, Cleveland got closer to the Bills. Miami got closer to the Bills.
Jets.
Baltimore got closer to the Bills. Indy got closer to the Bills.
Oh,
All
yeah.
these teams, at least, because the Bills brought back really good players and they drafted, guys who right now don't have a starting. I don't say don't have a shot. That's unfair to say.
Right, and that's what Beane said. But, but I get what you're saying, too, because Beane came out, and I think he was asked the question, like, are these seen as long-term picks? And he's like, no. He's like, I want Gregory Rousseau and Basham to be – they're going to be in the mix on game days. Like, they're going to get their chances. And then, okay, well, Spencer Brown and these guys are talented. Like, they're going to push for spots. But I get what you're saying where it was – not a missed opportunity, but I would have liked to see more of a project at a wide receiver, some guy that like another cheap wide receiver. Like we saw, like even Emmanuel Sanders is going to get $6 million this year as a wide receiver that's coming towards the,
Yeah. But I
just,
see the value in a guy like that because you know what he does.
Absolutely.
Right.
But couldn't you find that? I feel like being what he said about stressing to get cheaper production down the road, I understand offensive tackles can be expensive, but I just see like a 5th-year option on a wide receiver, a running back is so much of a savings compared to an edge rusher when you drafted an edge rusher the year before.
Well, yeah, the year before that. And they have tried to spend money. And I think maybe that's why he's looking at it that way. Look, again, I'll go back to saying I have faith in the guy because he knows how to evaluate players. It's just the spot to me that he's had a tough time with. And he needs more. He needs more out of Ed Oliver. He needs more out of A.J. Epinesa, right? Harrison Phillips. It's a make or break year for him too, and the cap starts coming into play. And I really do think Brandon Beane sees it coming. He sees we got a lot of good players. We're paying people. Josh's contract's coming up.
Yeah.
Tremaine Edmonds, all those things. And he said to himself, all right, maybe this is the year that I keep who I've got, keep them on limited deals, and I go out and try to find key positions cheaper. That maybe that's what I have to do. And maybe Darrell Williams has a really good year and he decides to walk because somebody's going to give him 5 years and he's got a right tackle to step in. That could look really good for him. Yeah. I'm just wondering, I guess because I've been covering this team so long, and in the last 20 years, it's always been about the 5-year plan. Well, we're right now in the middle of it. Like, they're good, and I want to see more. So to that, I think they're back out in the free agent market again. I don't think there's any doubt. I think they're bringing in some guys to help now. Whether that is, a running back still could be a possibility, though I don't think so. They signed Breida. I guess that would be their quicker guy. But a corner, no doubt. I think they're going to be looking for a veteran corner and maybe a veteran tight end.
Yeah, that's funny, Mike.
Come on. Zach Ertz is going to wear Bills blue this year. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. I'd feel better if they got it.
He's going to keep willing it into existence.
But that is the kind of – hey, look, I guess the Eagles could cut him after June 1st. And then if the Bills really want him, they just go sign him. I guess that can happen too.
Yes.
But I want to see a little bit of that. I'm telling you, I guess it's because I'm anxious because this is a tough conference. Yeah. And the division got better. Look, I don't – the Jets got better the minute they fired Gase. Not as much about Darnold. They got better. We know Miami's good. And then they added some weapons. And they added another pass rusher. And they got Jamar Chase. And, they got a lot of talented players. And New England, whether it is, by the way, the great line was that
Mac Jones?
Mac Jones was the little kid in the commercial with Cam Newton.
Yes.
And now he's like, I'm going to take your starting job. That wasn't too long ago, but yeah. But I'm saying is these teams got better. And like I said, Baltimore and Cleveland and
I think that's and the weird thing, Mike, is, again, I'm with you, as Bills fans say, like, in Beane we trust. You talked to a Bills fan in Cleveland that said he trusted Beane with his life. And he's earned that respect, and he's earned that because he has hit and made such, really smart moves. So if you've made it to this far along in the video, we're not sitting here bashing this draft class. But what will be interesting is that this draft class will be so interesting on when you can finally grade it, because these guys are probably not going to play much next year besides Rousseau, maybe Basham getting in there. And then you have to really figure out if these tackles develop into cornerstones of an offensive line. It's just one of those things where, they talk about it's so, not stupid, but these people come out and they give grades after every team after this draft. It's like they've never put on the pads yet for this team.
Right.
And you're going to say, this guy's going to be great. And he may never be great. So this draft class is going to have a big TBD on when it is decided.
And I will tell Bills fans this. You wonder, how much can these guys contribute anyhow? Look at our roster. Well, go back a year ago.
Yep.
You had Devin Singletary and Zach Moss contributed a lot. You had Steven Hauschka, and your kicker came in and blew away Hauschka and was really important, Tyler Bass.
And you
had John Brown, and you brought in Gabe Davis. Yeah. And he really helped you. So they're going to hopefully – some of these guys step up. Hey, for all we know, it's one of the undrafted free agents that comes in and help. But you always need something extra. And, they did draft a few guys, like I said. Last year they didn't contribute as much. They're counting on them a little bit, like Epinesa. But we're going to have to wait and see. And, Dan, coming up, the decision on the fifth-year option.
Yep.
Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds. Well, I mean, Josh Allen. I can't even think of a reason they don't pick it up because it doesn't take effect until the next year, and they're going to get a deal done with him before then.
Tremaine
Edmonds. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. And then, Mike, just go back to your point before we wrap up here. DeMar Hamlin is another guy, a late round pick. He's the only guy I've ever mocked correctly in the last 3 years. I actually had them taking this guy. I got a one-on-one with him today, and he kind of talks about it. And obviously, he was teammates with Dane Jackson. He calls him his brother, all those things. But again, he's paired with and can learn from maybe the best safety duo in the league. Yeah. And you're sitting here, and again, we don't want to talk about injuries, but again, he could be one injury away from playing significant time. So you look at that too. So big decision coming up tomorrow. If you're following here, keep it here with BuffaloPlus.com. We'll have more information as well on Spencer Brown. All these draft classes. I got a one-on-one with Greg Rousseau's high school coach. He said that he has a kill switch. That interview, I'll make sure I post up there, that he can go from wanting to kill the quarterback to wanting to babysit his kids after the game, which is just one of the coolest ways to describe how aggressive and nice a person can be. So plenty more coverage. Keep it right here on BuffaloPlus.com. For Mike Catalana, I'm Dan Fetes. Thanks for watching.